It was a day in May, during the recording of Kill 'Em All. Kirk was staying at the home of session musician Gary Zefting. While waiting to record his parts, he was reading The Stand by Stephen King. One line in particular caught his attention.
Why then you go on to death row at state prison and just enjoy all that good food until it's time to ride the lightning.
Ride the lightning. The phrase kept running through his head. He wrote it down, and the next time he saw James, he told him about what he had read. "Wow, that's cool," James said. Besides working on the recording of Kill 'Em All, the guys had already started writing new songs. As usual, they had a riff tape where they recorded every new riff they came up with. Normally, they would simply connect these riffs together. But after Cliff joined Metallica, their approach to building songs began to change. Cliff was the only member of the band with a formal musical education. He had a good understanding of time signatures and harmonies. He also had his own unique vision of how compositions should be structured. They took several riffs from the riff tape and began putting together a new song. The tape still contained some of Dave Mustaine's ideas. These riffs became the foundation for Ride the Lightning. James approached the lyrics by exploring the subject of execution in the electric chair. Kirk incorporated into his solos what he had learned while studying with Joe Satriani. And of course, Lars contributed his part as well. He worked on the arrangements. Another song they were actively working on was Creeping Death. Lars had been obsessed with the 1956 film The Ten Commandments since he was a kid. At the Metallica mansion in El Cerrito, they didn't have a VCR. One day, James and Lars borrowed a tape and drove over to Cliff's parents' house to watch the movie. The idea for the song came during the scene when the deadly fog spread across the ground and crept toward its victims, killing every Egyptian firstborn child that was caught in it. Cliff remarked, "Whoa, that's like creeping death." James liked the phrase. Inspired by the film, he wrote the lyrics to the song, and the Pharaoh's line became the basis for the song's chorus.
So let it be written. So let it be done.
The main riff was already on the riff tape, but it sounded pretty slow. As they played it during rehearsals, the tempo gradually increased. And when they went back and listened to the original version on tape, they realized that the song needed to be much faster. They were missing a middle section, and Kirk suggested adding a mind-blowing riff he had written when he was 16. The problem was that he had already used it in a song called Die by His Hand when he was playing with Exodus. Kirk didn't hesitate for long. With slightly modified lyrics, the entire section made its way into Creeping Death. After the Kill 'Em All album was recorded, Cliff and Kirk began the 3-day journey home by bus. James and Lars arrived later, bringing a cassette copy of the album with them. They were thrilled with what they had accomplished. Each of them made a copy for themselves. They had no money, and in order to survive, just 2 weeks later the band returned to New York with Mark Whitaker to begin their first tour from there. The guys met the English band Raven at Zazula's house. Johnny Z also boldly invited Raven to come to the United States and play shows with Metallica. Raven already had 2 studio albums under their belt, and Zazula offered to release their 3rd album on his Megaforce label. The album was titled All for One, and when the idea of a joint tour with Metallica came up, they didn't have to think very hard about what to call it. They combined the titles of the 2 albums and came up with Kill 'Em All for One. Johnny Z bought a Winnebago specifically for the occasion. The tour was supposed to last 2 months and end with 3 shows in the Bay Area. Looking forward to it, Hetfield painted the words, "No Life Till Frisco," on one side of the vehicle. Inside were 4 members of Metallica, 3 members of Raven, and 5 crew members. The equipment was loaded into a separate truck. The best bunks were on top, and there were fights over them every night. For the first few dates of the tour, the bands weren't provided with hotel rooms where they could rest after the shows. But alcohol was listed as a mandatory item on the rider. And once everyone got drunk, they would start trashing the dressing room. In the end, some of the money they earned had to be used to pay for the damage. During the drives in the Winnebago, nobody could sleep because of the scorching heat. It reeked of sweat and booze, and they had to get even drunker just so they wouldn't have to smell it. The exhaustion eventually reached its limit. After a show at the Rat in Boston, the bands demanded that the local promoter provide them with a place to stay. The demand was met. When they walked into the apartment, they found piles of junk and filth everywhere. A huge pile of hair had comfortably settled on the couch. After seeing the place, Raven decided that the Winnebago wasn't so bad after all. Metallica, hardened by life in the music building, decided to stay. This was a place that couldn't possibly be made any worse. The tour included shows at clubs that weren't exactly packed with people. Sometimes, only 15 people showed up, but the tour itself had a huge impact. When photographer Gene Ambo heard Kill 'Em All for the first time, he immediately went to see Metallica in Baltimore, rather than waiting for them to come to his hometown. After the show, he went backstage and became friends with Metallica. When the band eventually came to Chicago, Ambo put them up at his house. Before the show, he looked Kirk up and down and dared to suggest that he wear some clothes from his own wardrobe on stage. "Dude, if you go on stage dressed like that in Chicago, they're gonna kill you," Ambo said. At some point during the conversation, James asked Gene if he knew any good singers who might be able to join Metallica. After seeing the band perform on stage, Ambo was surprised by Hetfield's low self-confidence. "Dude, nobody wants to hear a singer. Nobody wants to hear melody. They just want you to scream at them," Ambo replied. That night, August 12th, Metallica played the legendary show at the Metro, which was captured on film thanks to Johnny Z. James introduced the audience to the vinyl copy of Kill 'Em All and threw it into the crowd. During his guitar solo, Kirk decided to let the audience members mess around with the strings on his Flying V, and immediately regretted it. The tour continued through scorching 110-degree heat with the air conditioning broken, sometimes taking them to extremely remote towns and godforsaken places. In Pine Bluff, Arkansas, someone whispered to the promoter that the bands had recently played Madison Square Garden in front of 17,000 people and that he was dealing with potential heavy metal gods. So the guy booked a venue that could hold 10,000 people. Of course, expectations were not met. At most, 300 people showed up. On the way from Los Angeles to San Francisco, the Winnebago died spectacularly. It practically exploded with smoke pouring out of every opening. Ulrich jumped out faster than everyone else, trying to get as far away from it as possible. They had to find another vehicle to continue the journey, and on September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, the bands played the final 3 shows of the tour in the Bay Area. For the first time, they performed a song called When Hell Freezes Over.
This is a new one.
This composition had been developing for a very long time and included a Mustaine riff dating back to Metallica's original lineup. At the time, Yngwie Malmsteen had become extremely popular. Inspired by his playing style, Kirk incorporated arpeggios into his solo. The fans welcomed Metallica with even greater enthusiasm and support. At the final shows, they were helped with guitar tech duties by Metal Church guitarist John Marshall, who would later become a close and loyal friend of the band. After the tour ended, an epic party was held at the Metallica mansion, eventually ending with a fight between Raven drummer Rob Hunter and an unknown guest. The police and paramedics rushed to their house.